as of today, it is not safe at all. However, the Northeast in general, Manipur specifically, have traditionally always been very safe places for women, very safe spaces for women to operate in. In 1993, it happened over a period of years. So the immediacy of this conflict is far higher uh, because of social media and because of modern technology.
Today, I'm being joined by Esha Roy, who is our senior assistant editor at Indian Express. And she's joining us for a reason today. She was in Manipur in 2012. And in the wake of the recent incident that has come to the surface, the video of two women who were paraded naked on the road in broad daylight, it has really shaken a lot of us. And Aisha, thank you so much for joining us. And I would firstly like to ask you a question. Since you were posted there, how was your reporting like? Was there any such instances that you have reported on?
No, so when I reached Manipur in 2012, when I was there for close to 4 years, insurgency was beginning to decline. But Manipur and Imphal city in particular was highly militarized. It was garrisoned. There were a lot of bunkers. There was constant patrolling. You had bulletproof armed vehicles which were patrolling the streets constantly. So that was the situation when I turned up in Imphal for the first time. Having said that, the instances of, for instance, encounters, alleged fake encounters, attacks, ambushes was actually on a decline when I was first posted there. Of course, this conflict is one of the oldest. It is the oldest in the country and one of the oldest in the world. It's been raging for 60 years. There are officially around 34, 35 insurgent groups in Manipur. Unofficially, there are close to 60 because these groups keep splintering. So it is a conflict area, much more than any other northeastern states. There have been conflicts in other northeastern states such as Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland. Nagaland is in the midst of its peace talks. The groups in Nagaland are engaged in peace talks with the Indian government. But just the complexity of Manipur is far greater than any other states by virtue of the fact that there are so many ethnic groups, tribes, clans belonging to different cultures, costumes, religions. They have their own languages. So the social fabric of Manipur is extremely complex. Therefore, the insurgency is also very complex.
And do you think there has been any notable changes or challenges recently? Like you said, in 2012, the instances were quite low.
The instances were on a decline. I mean, till 2012, there were a fairly high number of what is now being called fake encounters by Indian security forces and Manipur commandos, which started being documented in 2012. There was a case put in the Supreme Court, and so the instances of insurgency started to decline. Also, the coverage by the media was much wider in more recent years. And then with the advent of social media, that really changed the landscape entirely because everything gets reported immediately. You really can't keep things under wraps any longer. I would say things have changed in Manipur. They were already on the path of some sort of normalcy by the time I left 4 years later. There were when I first reached, things were shut down by 5:36. There was no public transport. The little public transport you could get, you would not get after 5:30. People would, get back home latest by 6:37. Rarely would you leave your house after that. So nights in Imphal would be like living in a ghost town. There would be no one outside. It would be dark. It would be desolate. So that was the situation. And there were a couple of hotels and no cafes. But by the time I was leaving, um, many Manipuris who were living abroad, young people were coming back, uh, living outside of Manipur, sorry, not living abroad, abroad as well as in other parts of the country. They were coming back to the state. They were, business driven. They were, passionate. So they started launching a lot of their own businesses. Cafes started opening up. And with the decline in insurgency, normalcy was limping back into Manipuri society, let's say. And of course, by the time the BJP came to power for the first time in 2017, I think was their first election, things had, the situation had improved a lot in any case. And then, of course, they negotiated with insurgent groups and they put in a concerted effort to make sure that businesses were given a fillip. So things were very different till the time these ethnic clashes, broke out on May 3rd.
Yeah,
Things were moving towards normalcy.
right.
Yeah.
Esha, you made a really like an important point that with the advent of social media now, things are not, under wraps, and people are sort of exposed to media and all sorts of media, right? And
Right.
what I also wanted to understand was that how safe is Manipur right now for women? Like uh, the state has been in conflict for the last 2 months. So do you think people are sort of also tweeting about it, if Manipur is safe or not? What do you have to say about that? Has the state
But
always been safe?
right now, as of today, it is not safe at all. However, the Northeast in general, Manipur specifically, have traditionally always been very safe places for women, very safe spaces for women to operate in. What the incident that has taken place, like during my time reporting there, I never felt. As a matter of fact, I would say I had an advantage as a female reporter because the kind of challenges a male reporter would have to face.
Hmm.
I think I faced less challenges. Various groups were less aggressive towards me by virtue of my gender.
Hmm.
So that is one thing for sure. But what does happen is that although it is a conflict zone and the conflict has never been resolved in the past 60 years, nevertheless, there have been periods of intense violence, such as we have seen since May 3rd. And the previous
Right.
instance was in what the parallel one can draw somewhat was in the early 1990s, around 1992, 1993,
Oh.
when the Naga tribes, specifically the NSCNIM, which is the biggest insurgent group in the Northeast, um, they engaged in clashes with, again, the Kuki Zomi tribes and people, just as is happening right now, but with a different community, with the Vaishnav Meitei community in Manipur. Even at the time, there were allegations of widespread rape um, on both sides, but particularly against Kuki women at the time.
Hmm.
And this time around as well, there have been allegations, apart from this incident that we're seeing, there have been allegations of rape and other cases of sexual assault
Right.
against Kuki women
Yeah.
as well. I mean, I was talking to a local journalist, a friend of mine, and just the other day, and I was asking him if there were instances of sexual assault against Meitei women. And he belongs to the Meitei community, and he told me that he's been trying to follow up uh, rumors or leads about Meitei women being assaulted, but he hasn't been able to establish any such thing. So as of now, there doesn't seem to be any cases of sexual assault against Meitei women per se. The
Right.
difference between 1993 and now is that, first of all, a lot of the assault, the razing of villages and burning of homes, the clashes, some of it is documented, some of it, a lot of it is not. So we cannot for sure establish exactly what happened at the time. And that is
Hmm.
primarily because of the absence of social media. Like, now, Charulata, things are entirely different. People have been, residents from both communities have been taking videos. There is an internet ban
Hmm.
in Manipur, which is why a
Yeah.
lot of the videos have not come out. But what we have
Right.
seen so far has very clearly evidenced and pointed to culprits in various cases of various incidents of violence during the past 2 months. So social media, in that sense, has changed the landscape of culpability, so as to speak. Now we know um, who the perpetrators are, when the attacks have been. I mean, our knowledge of what is happening is far more specific. Um, but on the other hand, it has also made the situation so much more dangerous, because a lot of fake news and misinformation was distributed through social media, through word of mouth as well. Uh, this uh, this resulted in attacks and counterattacks, very violent counterattacks, uh, based on rumors, based on misinformation, which did not really happen during the 1993 violence. So that violence took place over a period of 5 years, and villages
Hmm.
were razed systematically over that
Hmm.
many years. But in this case, the displacement of people happened within a week, when the Kuki Zomi people had to flee Imphal Valley, and the Meiteis had to flee Kuki and Zomi dominated areas in the hill districts. So that happened in a matter of days. In 1993, it happened over a period of years. So the immediacy of this conflict is far higher uh, because of social media and because of modern technology.
Would you also want to sort of point at some of the factors that might have led to the violence at such, um, like it was quite like you said, like in 1993, it was quite different. So, what are the factors that might have led the whole thing to such extent that, today we are watching a video like this?
So, I mean, it is such a complex issue. I don't know how to sort of
Right.
succinctly tell you, because um, there's no one issue that has led to this. This has been on the
Mhm.
boil. There are very deep fault lines in Manipur. Like I told you, it's a very complex society.
Mhm.
There is a past years of mistrust between different communities because of sporadic clashes or disputes that have happened over decades. It's
Right.
rooted in their history. The Imphal Valley, Manipur, it was a kingdom. Uh, the Nagas were a warring tribe. They were headhunters. The British brought in the Kuki Chin people are believed to have brought in, when Manipur was a British protectorate, they're believed to have brought in the Kuki Zomi people from the Indo-Chin hills in Myanmar, and placed them like an umbrella over the Manipur kingdom to protect them from Naga invasions and plundering. So there has always been, they have always dealt with a sense of being an outsider, of not completely being indigenous to the land. That has been an accusation made against them from time immemorial by the Meiteis, by the Nagas. But they have, while their rivalry with the Nagas, because these were traditional and historic warring factions, uh, they have had very sort of good terms with the Meitei kingdom and the Meiteis all these decades. This is really the first the first time that there has been any sort of violence between these two particular uh, communities, which has been really shocking. A lot of the allegations made by the state government are not untrue. The rampant poppy cultivation in Manipur does exist. The caveat being that it exists across Manipur. It's not just in areas uh, inhabited by the Kuki-Zomi
Okay,
people, right?
dominated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's all over. It's all over the hills. Wherever you go, you'll see poppy cultivation. The fact that people are involved in it, leaders, but I mean, it's an open secret, really, in Manipur. So why has this entire imbroglio around the ST demand uh, by the Métis? I mean, it may have been a flashpoint, but there's a lot of sort of history of
Right.
mistrust between the communities, and that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, so as to speak. You know,
Like a
so
trigger.
there are a lot of issues. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the reaction, though, um, there has been a move towards Metis nationalism, which is again always existed, but they have been the radical elements in Metis society have been largely peripheral. They've been marginal, but over the last, let's say, 3-4 years or so, they've been brought to the center with these groups like Mete Lepun and Arambai Tengol, which are really radical Metis nationalistic groups. When I was there, they did not exist. When I was posted, I'd never heard of them. I'd never heard of these people. The so-called leaders, they simply did not exist. So they're really new entities, and they've just come up. And one has to wonder, like, how, what exactly is pushing them? How have they organized? Who heads these organizations? Who patronizes them? These are questions that I think we need to ask, because we really don't know how they operate right now. And they have, my understanding is that they have been some of the main instigators of the violence in
Right.
Manipur.
Also, my last question to you, government's inaction, or you can say a lot of criticism that the government has failed to sort of restore peace in the state. Um, is this quite alarming that the government was too late, or what do you have to say about that?
So I have been speaking to leaders in Manipur across political groups
Right.
over the last 2 months, and you know, even people within the ruling party, on condition of anonymity, have said that, they were unable to handle the situation, the state government. And the center, I'm not really sure what steps the center took apart from the Home Minister's 3-day visit, which
Right.
everybody has been talking about. But the fact of the matter is that the Home Minister's 3-day visit did not ensure um, that the violence stopped. While he was there, villages were being burned. After he left, violence continued across the state. So I'm not really sure if whether that helped or not. As far as the state government is concerned, people within the state, leaders within the state government have said that, there are two phases of violence. The first week or so, from May 3rd till about May 10th, May 15th, was spontaneous. Uh, you know, the Cookies Zomis were attacking the Metis were attacking the Cookies. Everyone was fleeing. I mean, they have admitted that they had no control over the situation whatsoever. They could not contain it. And they have alleged that the second bout of violence, which started on May 23rd, was they allege was actually orchestrated. The Métis leaders have said that it's orchestrated by the Kuki insurgent groups and the Zomi insurgent groups that operate out of the hill, that have been instigating the violence. The insurgent groups, on the other hand, the Kuki insurgent groups, for instance, KNO or UKLF, they have said that we have not engaged in violence at all. This is the people who have engaged in the violence in a measure to defend themselves against Meitei attacks, you know. So could the state government have done more? Yes, of course. I mean, when arms were looted across, but armories in Imphal Valley, uh, did they put enough forces to ensure that this did not happen? No, they did not. So, I mean, there were certain measures that they could have taken, which I personally feel that maybe they did not take or were unable to take. So yes, there is a certain amount of failure by the state to contain the situation.
Okay. Thank you so much, Esha, for joining us. And you've really explained everything so well. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us on this episode. This is Charulata signing off.